It may not look like it, but I've actually spent the last 7 months, yes, 7 whole months, turning this dark, humid garage into what I would consider the ultimate home office slash YouTube studio 2.0. And honestly, it's nearly perfect, well, except for a few quirks that I'll show you in just a minute. Now, don't get me wrong, this is still very much a garage at the end of the day. Just outside of this perfectly framed shot, you'll actually find the usual suspects: paint cans, power tools, random hardware, you name it. But in this corner specifically, this is kind of the sweet spot. To paint you a picture, this whole garage is actually 25 by 30. It's oversized, there's plenty of space for a man cave or even a workshop, but life happens, and now I'm actually working out of a carved up 6 by 10 foot section. Technically, it's not even actually a square. It's more of like a lopsided polygon, so to speak, but hey, it looks good on camera, so I'm just gonna roll with it. Now, this main angle that you're actually seeing, well, right now, is my go-to talking head setup. The goal here was actually pretty simple, all things considered. I just wanted to be able to flip on the lights, sit down, hit record, and show off whatever it is that I wanted to talk about today without having 100 unnecessary steps in the middle of all that. So for this particular shot, I'm actually running the Sony a6700 with a TT Artisan 35mm f1.8 lens. And honestly, it's not been my favorite setup, so I'm probably going to keep experimenting, but for now, it gets the job done, I guess. So everything I have is rigged up actually on a small rig tripod with some rods, and that actually holds up my teleprompter and iPad setup. Sometimes I like to fully script out these videos, but other times I'll just throw a couple of bullet points up on the screen and see what happens once I press record. It's not the most complex setup by any means, and it does have a couple of shortcomings. For example, the teleprompter actually blocks the screen coming off the camera, so I can't actually see myself when I'm filming, which means I probably need to invest in getting a monitor. I don't know. I'm also not near a convenient outlet, so I'm probably going to have to invest in a V-mount style battery for this setup, and that would mean that this little corner of my office would be a lot easier. Again, those aren't necessarily deal breakers by any means, and it hasn't failed me yet. Lighting wise though, this is probably one of my favorite parts of this this new studio. So for my key light, I'm still running the Amaran 200X. It's not necessarily new, and compared to my old original Mount Dog setup that I actually started this channel with, this thing just seems luxurious in comparison. Mostly because this light actually remembers all of my settings, which the Mount Dog setup did not. And modifying this light is actually a 120 centimeter parabolic softbox with double diffusion and a grid. So instead of spilling light everywhere behind me, it kind of stays nice and directional. It was a good bit of trial and error, to be honest. I've tried a couple different setups, a couple different modifiers, but I think this is it. I think this is the shot. I feel like I've finally dialed it into a sweet spot. And instead of taking up half the garage with different C stands or light stands, I've actually got all of it mounted on a Varipole using a super clamp. And if you've never used a Varipole, it's essentially just a pressure pole. It's kind of like what cabinet installers use, but it's way less intrusive than just having a normal stand on the floor. And it locks between, well, the floor and the ceiling. And suddenly I have a great mounting point, provided that your ceilings are under 12 feet, I think. But front and center, this is my desk, if you want to call it that. Most people would probably just go and grab something from IKEA and just call it a day. But since this ultimately is a garage, I needed something a little bit more multi-purpose. And so this isn't just where I film these videos, it's a legitimate workbench, because while cameras and YouTube eat up a lot of my free time, when I do find the odd chance for other stuff, I still like to wrench on trucks, which means I actually need a surface that looks clean enough for like these videos, but can also hold the weight of, say, a transmission or transfer case, or just take a beating if I really need it to. So instead of the safe IKEA route, I spent about $100 on plywood and 2x4s, recruited a couple of my buddies, and we built this 3x6 foot monster. And it kind of shows because this whole thing is stupid heavy. We even went ahead and threw some heavy duty casters on all 4 corners so that we could try to move it around, but honestly, it feels more like pushing a tank across the desert, which isn't necessarily impossible, but it's definitely not graceful. So I guess at the end of the day, I would much rather take a solid, unshakable desk over something that's flimsy, so to speak. And sticking with the garage theme, I went with heavy duty Husky cabinets. Is anyone noticing a trend here? At one point, I thought about building something a little bit more custom like I did with the desk here. After a few too many trips back and forth to Home Depot, I realized that Husky honestly offered the perfect setup, and I didn't want to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. So this is a solid 5-piece kit with more than enough storage for both my current gear as well as a little bit of extra room for growth down the road. The tall cabinet in the corner, actually, it was kind of a big must, especially because I have plenty of oversized items, and I think you probably would too, that just don't exactly tuck away nice and neatly. I'm talking tripods, modifiers, you name it. And then I have an unhealthy obsession with keeping boxes. Seriously though, can we just talk about this for a second? Because what is it with keeping boxes for pieces of gear that you'll probably never sell? Like, it seems like it makes the resale of the item a little bit easier, and it feels more like complete when you put it in the listing and you can say, hey, it comes with the original box and everything else. But half the time it's just like this weird mental block for me. I just don't want to throw all of my stuff out. Plus, I don't know, it just looks like a perfectly good empty box. And sometimes I think, no, I better keep it just in case. And I don't know, I'm just rambling at this point. Maybe that's just me. Is there anyone else that kind of lives by that mentality of like hoarding all of their boxes, or am I the only one? As for the other cabinets, that's where the rest of the day-to-day stuff lives, like all of the varying microphones that I've been collecting over the past year and a half. I also store all of my other different accessories like batteries, quick release plates, and other things that I probably can't commit to selling them on Marketplace, but I still keep them anyway, but I just don't use them all the time, and so they just live in a drawer. So yeah, that kind of makes up most of this background in the main shot, but over in this corner, we have the infamous IKEA Scatus pegboard. And look, the entire plan of building out this whole studio was to avoid IKEA altogether, but ultimately I caved. I walked out with the pegboard, and obviously I had to stop for some Swedish meatballs, which aren't pictured because I ate them. IKEA isn't necessarily bad. I wasn't avoiding it because I don't like IKEA. We have plenty of IKEA stuff throughout our house, but they're not exactly a staple for like high quality furniture, especially with today's prices and everything else. But I know that the Scatus is technically the YouTube starter pack accessory, and I'm sure there are plenty of better options that exist out there. But look, let's face it, this one's already mounted to the wall and it just gives this room a little bit of texture. But I don't know, if there's like some Scatus hack that I don't know about, if you could just drop the cheat code in the comments or give me some tips or tell me what add-ons to buy to make this useful, that would be great, because I literally have another one still in the packaging and I can't decide whether I want to leave it in the corner or if I just don't care at this point. Oh, and to keep all of this behind me from looking too sad, I also went ahead and bought a couple of accent lights. So for starters, I have the Amaran PT2C tube light, which is mounted right above the pegboard. And then underneath the cabinets, I have the Amaran 25C. Both of them are RGBW, which basically means that I can keep things neutral if I want to match my key light, or I can flip them into color mode when I want to add a little bit more to the vibe. It's nothing too crazy considering I'm not a 13-year-old gamer, but I just wanted a little bit of color to spruce things up in the background and make it a little bit less boring. So maybe instead of bashing the Twitch kids, they might be onto something, because I'll be honest, I kind of want to buy a few more. Now, this isn't a studio accessory, at least not for everyone, but it was absolutely a necessity for me, especially in the awful Florida heat. So building out this entire studio in a garage without AC, I don't know. It wasn't gonna last long term, I don't think. And I'm surprised that I made it for as long as I did, because you've probably seen those Mr. Cool ads floating around. They're trying to sell you on like this whole DIY friendly plug and play setup, but it's triple the price of what I ended up buying for my space. And I don't know, I found this DIY friendly-ish unit on Amazon. It still required a lot of work. It actually required a little bit of extra work because I had to vacuum the line set, and then when we were mounting it, it kind of felt like I had to pivot.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
But ultimately, the added work was worth the cost savings. In terms of placement, I think that's where I screwed it up, because I wanted to place it closer to this corner for obviously airflow, but I still wanted to service the rest of the garage. But that came with a bit of a downside, because sometimes now that that unit's closer, it messes with my wireless transmitters. So I guess I could have read that in the manual. It was clearly outlined, and there's also a very slight hum. So sometimes you can hear it in the background of the videos, but most of the time I just have to turn the fan speed all the way down, which is still good enough. Like, I'm not melting mid-recording, but if you've ever seen me glisten in some of my other YouTube videos, that would explain why. So now that it's installed, shouldn't be too big of an issue. At the end of the day, it has been a game changer. There's no more sweating through takes, no more worrying about humidity wrecking all of my gear, and I can finally record for hours on end without feeling like I'm in a gym sauna. And while the heat problem is technically solved, I'm still working on the sound side of things. So right now, I'm actually using some heavy duty moving blankets to kind of like filter and control the airflow and put it where I need it instead of wasting it on all 800 square feet of the garage, especially when I'm trying to film these videos. And those do double as a little bit of a sound dampener to block out my neighbors mowing their lawns at the weirdest times of the day. But I also went ahead and partially insulated the garage door, which cut down on a little bit of the echo, but really it kind of serves as just like cutting down on some of the heat. So I'm looking at grabbing a few budget-friendly acoustic panels to kind of finish out this corner, and maybe the smart move would be to throw a rug down because I do have concrete floors ultimately. Like everything else on this channel, I'm trying to tackle it piece by piece and ultimately on a budget, because sure, I could just go out and spend cash on fancy acoustic treatments, but I would rather put that same money back into this channel by buying new camera gear that I can test and ultimately share with y'all. So that pretty much sums things up. I still have a few upgrades that are on the horizon, like finalizing my top-down rig. Right now, it's literally just a C-stand arm with a Joby ball head dangling off the end of it. So it's not exactly the most elegant setup, so to speak, but it does get the job done. And I'm also eyeing another camera down the line since I actually sold my ZV-E10 Mark II after only 3 months of owning it. Oh, and this chair situation, because I really need to fix that. At the moment, I'm actually using one of our kitchen bar stools out here, which my back hates, and so does my wife. She's not really thrilled that I've permanently relocated one of our bar stools to the garage, but hey, at least it's chilling out here with me. Get it? No? Okay, that was a bad joke. I'll see myself out. Anyways, thanks for joining me on this little garage turned home studio YouTube tour thing. I've got a video to edit and I have a few more projects in the pipeline. So if you have a chair recommendation that works and won't break the bank, I'm all ears, but be sure to like this video, subscribe for future studio updates, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.